Welcome to your practice. All you need for this today is a blanket or cushion. If you don't have one, no big deal, but it's just nice to have there. And we're going to take ourselves through a full body stretch and a little bit of a flow. We won't be doing any particular breath work or meditation within this practice, just focusing on yoga asana, limbering up and loosening up the body. We're going to begin with balasana, child's pose. So here you could use your blanket or a bit of cushioning to support your knees, bringing it across the mat like this. Or if you like a bit of support under your head in child's pose, you could have a cushion or blanket there. But open the knees out towards the edges of your mat, bring the big toes together and sit as far back onto your heels as you can. And before we go down into child's pose, just pause here. If this is really tough on your knees or ankles, come up a little higher. Or you could bring some support, the blanket under your ankles, if that's where it's feeling like it's needed in this shape. So settle yourself in and just close your eyes for a moment as you take 3 deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth gently. And then keeping your hips dropping down onto your heels or as low as you can manage, walk your hands forwards, and before you drop all the way down with the head, take a little side to side movement and just sort of help the hips and the lower back and the pelvis, that area, start to limber and loosen up. And then gradually walk your hands forwards. Keep the hands about as wide as the mat, so nice and wide through the hands. The hips are pressing back to the heels. And then we bow the head all the way down, either to the mat or onto some cushioning. And breathe into this big stretch, stretching along the spine, through the shoulders, through the hips. Then lift your head slightly, walk both of your hands over to the right. Try not to lift the hips as you do this, so still sitting back with the hips, but stretching the arms just off the edge of the mat to the right. And then bow your head. And breathe into that nice big stretch of the side body, the shoulder. See if you can press your left buttock back towards your left heel to keep that length along the left side. We're here for one more breath. And then lifting your head, walk your hands back through center and take that same stretch over to the left side. Bowing the head, sitting the hips back to the heels, stretching out the side of the body, shoulders and hips. Then lifting your head, coming back through to center and up to tabletop position, hands and knees. So bring hands underneath the shoulders now, knees hip distance apart, and walk yourself towards the back of your yoga mat. You can still use a bit of cushioning under the knees if you like. Then take a breath in, lift your head to look forwards, cow pose. Exhale, round your back, cat pose. Repeat a couple more times, nice and slowly, working through the spine. And the next time you're looking forwards in cow pose, stay with that position for a moment. So keep this tipping forwards of the pelvis, the tailbone lifting up. And from there, walk your hands forwards for puppy pose. So hands are staying about as wide as the yoga mat. Hips are staying elevated, and we bow the chest, we bow the head. Depending on how mobile you are in the shoulders and in the spine, you might stay here, a little bit more lifted. Or you might find that you're able to drop your chest down towards the ground. Some of you might even be able to rest your forehead to the ground or your chin. Just explore this stretch of the spine and the shoulders and breathe into it. See where you want to be today. Remember, we're always working towards the edge of what's comfortable, but never pushing into a point of feeling pain or, a feeling of pushing ourselves too far. So just explore this stretch. 2 more breaths here if you can. And then just lifting out of it slightly, keeping the hands where they are. Pick up your left hand, you're going to come to thread the needle, so reaching through, dropping onto your left shoulder and the left side of the head, and breathing here about 3 or 4 slow breaths. And then lifting back out, switching sides, so left hand to the ground, right arm reaching through. And then lifting out of it and preparing for downward dog. So walk the hands in a little bit, bring the knees back in under the hips, tuck under the toes. Keep fingers spreading out wide, and then push your hips high for downward dog and start pedaling through the feet a little bit, bending and straightening legs, working through the toes, the feet, the ankles, calves and hamstrings, getting a good stretch. Bowing your chest towards your thighs. And then looking forwards, bend the knees, walk your feet about halfway up the mat and take them out towards the outer edges of the mat so you can sink down into Malasana, which is this yogi squat or garland pose. You might lift the heels up here if needed. If your blanket is still there, you could just tuck that under your heels for a little bit more of a lift there. You might be up on tiptoes, you might find you're not able to sink down quite as deeply as this, that's fine. Again, just go to what's comfortable for you. Press the knees wide, lift through the chest. And if you've got your balance here, you might draw palms together. And you might have the elbows on the insides of the knees, pressing the knees outwards. Try to lift tall through the crown of the head. And breathe with it. And if this is way too much today, if this pose is not the one for you, you can lift out of it anytime into a dangling forward fold where the arms are just relaxing down, the head is heavy. And then you can come back into the squat if you feel ready for it. If you are feeling good in your squat, we're going to take it into a twist. So we're going to start with this left arm. We're going to reach across and just open up. I'm going to turn to face you just so you can see what I mean. I'm going to open up this arm a little bit so the upper arm is on the inside of the knee, and then we're stretching up with the right arm, big wide stretch, opening up through the back, through the hips. Ankles are probably going to be feeling this too. One more breath. And then bring it down and switch sides. So this right arm comes to the inside of the knee, left arm opens up. And then releasing. Bring hands to the ground, lift into that dangling forward fold. Bend the knees quite generously so you can really fold over your legs and let your head go heavy. Then try reaching your arms round behind your back and interlacing your fingers, stretching the knuckles up towards the ceiling. Big stretch for the shoulders here. 3 breaths. Draw the shoulder blades together. Last breath now. And then gently let the arms release down. Walk the hands a little forwards, the feet a little backwards, back to downward dog. And again, pedal into the feet, push with the hands, sink the heels down. Then taking the right leg up into 3-legged dog. Big stretch through the hips. Keep both arms strong and straight. And step that right foot to the outside of your right hand for lizard lunge. If it doesn't happen in one go, that's okay. Give it a hand, help it to get into position. So right foot is on the outside of the right hand. The left leg is fairly straight and we're pushing back through that left heel. You can be looking down to the ground here if needed and lift the hips a little higher. Or you might be gazing forwards and sinking into the hips a little lower. We're here for 2 more breaths, really stretching out the legs. And then we're going to lower the back knee down to the mat. You can choose if you want to keep the toes tucked at the back or untucked. And then lean into your left palm and use your right hand to just press this right thigh out away from you. So opening your chest up towards the ceiling, a little twist for the spine. You might roll onto the outer edge of this right foot, or it might stay flat. See what you prefer. And then something else you can explore here if you've got the flexibility, and this is not for everybody, definitely, but you could explore lifting the back foot, reaching back with the right hand, and you might find that that foot is within reach. If it's not there, don't force it. You could either take the right hand back up towards the ceiling or keep it on the thigh. We're going to stay for 2 more breaths, finding one of those variations. And then gently let it all go. Bring the hand back down to the mat on the inside of the foot. We're going to transition back to downward dog. So lift that back knee, lift the hips high and step it through. Feel the difference between the right and left hip, the one that's been stretched out quite deeply and the other one that hasn't yet. Can you feel that difference? And then we're sending the left leg up into 3-legged dog. Big stretch up, straight arms, and step it to the outside of the left hand for your lizard lunge. Well done. So hands are on the mat, right heel is pressing back, and we're into this deep hip stretch. Again, you might be looking to the ground. You might have the hips a little bit higher. That's going to take a bit less of a stretch into the hips. Or you might be looking forwards, dropping down in the hips a little deeper. And then lower the back knee to the mat. Again, you can keep toes tucked or untucked as you prefer. Leaning into the right hand, we're going to use this left hand to press the thigh away, to open the chest up towards the sky. You might roll onto the outer edge of your left foot, or it might stay flat. Breathe into that twist, really sinking down now in the hips. And if it feels like it might be accessible, you could try floating up the back foot, reaching back and taking hold. If it's not there, you might try sending your left hand up to the ceiling and resting the back foot down to the ground. Or you might keep the hand on the thigh where it started, picking one of those variations and staying with it for 3 more breaths. And then gently release, bring the hand back down on the inside of the foot, lift the hips, lift the back knee, and then step it back to one last downward dog. Bow your head, relax your jaw, let the heels sink downwards and find your full expression of downward dog. And then walking the hands in towards the feet. Soften the knees, come back to that sort of dangly forward fold position. Heavy from the head, heavy from the arms. Take the hands then round behind the back, try interlacing the fingers, same as we did before. Lift the knuckles, feel that big stretch through the shoulders and the chest, shoulder blades squeezing together. And then try lifting your gaze to look forwards. See if you can bend your knees, come onto your tiptoes, and lower your knees all the way down to the ground. If there's no way that's going to happen, release your hands, use your hands to help you to come down onto the knees. And we'll meet in this lovely toe and foot stretch where the toes are tucked under. We're sitting back on the heels and we've got the arms behind the back, interlaced fingers, chest opening. If your feet or toes are really struggling with this, come up a little higher, take some of the weight out of that stretch. Think about opening up the chest now, drawing the shoulder blades back together and down the back, so knuckles are reaching towards the ground. And then to release, lift up onto the knees and release the hands and just untuck the toes for a moment. It might be nice to give the toes a little wiggle. Bring the knees to hip distance apart if they're not already there, and take your hands round to your lower back. So hands are supporting the lower spine. We're going to take a little back bend here with the option to come into camel pose if you feel ready for it. So we're lifting the chest, drawing shoulder blades back and together and pressing the pelvis forwards, starting to arch back. You can keep looking forwards if your neck likes that variation, or you can let your head tip back if your neck enjoys that. And for those of you who might feel ready, either with toes tucked or toes flat, you can reach back with one hand, see if the heel might be accessible. You can lean back into it, lift the chest. Maybe you just try one hand today, and then bring it back to the lower back and reach back with the other hand and try it from there. See if you can stay with it for a couple of breaths, this big open heart stretch. Then lifting out. And if you want to try going for both, you can go for both. I'm not going to do that personally today. I've got a little pregnant tum here if you can't tell, so I'm not going to reach that far back. But there's the opportunity now for you to try it if you want to. If you're ready to lift out of the pose though, come all the way upright. If you are still working with it, think about driving the pelvis forward, see if you can engage your glutes and keep those shoulder blades squeezing back and together. When it's time to come out of the pose, lift up, untuck the toes, bring the big toes together, open the knees out wide, sit back onto the heels, come back to where we started, resting hands onto thighs. Maybe you open the palms to face up. If you'd like to come back down into a child's pose here, that option is there. Or if you'd like to stay seated, you can stay seated. Just close your eyes again. Soften all of the facial features. And let's close with 3 slow breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. Thank you so much for joining me for this practice. If you'd like longer practices with me, I'll leave details below to my Patreon membership where you can enjoy full-length classes. But I hope to see you either over there or here on YouTube for another video very soon. Thank you.